You're listening to another episode of Open Source CXO, the podcast designed to share insights on how to excel in your business using technology, regardless of the industry. Host Robert Kehoe is a self-taught software developer who has grown to the role of CEO. Renowned for his collaborations with organizations such as Stanford University, Nelnet, and Louis Vuitton, he continually seeks new challenges to conquer in the world of tech. Accompanying him is Don Blackburn, a veteran COO with over 25 years of experience in cultivating diverse relationships and driving innovation in various technical projects. Each week, they'll be sitting down with some of the nation's foremost technology leaders to develop an open source playbook, drawing from their firsthand experiences in the field. Let's talk some tech.
Today we're joined by Jim Poteet, who is in senior leadership over at Oracle Health, formerly Cerner. Mm-hmm. It's my understanding you've been at Cerner for a number of years. First, thank you for joining us. And second, why don't we talk a little bit about your role there?
Yeah, absolutely.
What you do.
Happy to be here. I've been with Cerner, now Oracle Health, for about 13 years. Two stints. Started in early 2000s and then rejoined 2013 after some entrepreneurial stuff here in the city. Currently, have a division of about 120 some odd software engineers across 4 different development centers, 2 in the U.S. and 2 in India. Working in really the financial side of healthcare from the standpoint. So leading the data analytics from the financial side, as well as health information management, which is a solution on making sure all the medical coding is correct so that our clients can get paid for their services, which seems to be a pretty important task. Yeah, they like that from that standpoint. But beyond that, Oklahoma State guy, industrial engineering degree, cut my teeth at Accenture, worked in every industry except for healthcare and finance. And then after that, worked in healthcare and finance.
Now you got it all covered.
And so I've covered a lot
Gotcha.
over the years from that standpoint.
I think it's interesting that you took the family business and then carried that over into your professional life, right? And the lessons you learned.
Yeah. Well, when you look at it, the funeral business is part ministry.
Sure. Yeah.
As well as, it was a service to the community, right? So there was a lot of, it was in the family for 100 years. Early on, the ambulance business was part of it, till that went to the city, all those sort of things. There are, definite similarities to what I learned and, what I learned from my parents and how my dad orchestrated the business over time to things that I do today, with the software engineering team.
Well, relating to people.
It's related to people, but experimentation was one of the things.
Oh, okay.
So how'd you get your start then? Did you develop software for your family's business? Is that?
Well, I was I did back in, and this is
That's kind of how I got my start. It's from my dad's company.
I wasn't an Atari guy. I was an Apple IIe guy.
Oh.
Kind of the Apple stuff.
Yeah.
And I had an applied engineering card which would mimic a PC, so I could do Apple stuff and I could do the PC stuff was coming along. So there was kind of some accounting things that I did to help there. I just always had an affinity. Went into industrial engineering, and we had a background of programming in that. And I had an internship I worked for a professor where our senior project was with the Oklahoma Health Department. And so we're building a database and doing things for them.
Yeah. Probably DB2 back then.
Yeah. What was some of those? DBase?
So that was okay.
Yeah, this is way back.
It was not mainframe.
Yeah.
This is.
So I really had a affinity for that, and that's why I did the consulting route, because it was all computer programming, information systems, for businesses.
I can imagine you probably don't do a whole lot of programming in your day-to-day. Transitioning into leadership and you like it? Do you like the path that you kind of have gone?
Well, most days you have to live vicariously through your team, but you definitely have to keep up to speed on the technology. So
then how would
there's
you
a lot
do
of
that?
reading that goes on. Now, one of my goals this year is to get OCI certifications, and it's more of available time, from that standpoint. But in technology, no matter what level you're at, I mean, you've got to keep up to speed.
Yeah.
If that's writing a little bit of code every once in a while, then try to figure out how to do that. It doesn't happen very often, but
one of the things we've been trying to do with this series of podcasts, and we're talking to all leaders, obviously CIOs and CTOs and so forth, is path to leadership. And it's interesting to hear everybody's different, right? Some people accidentally fell into it. Some people had a clear, defined path, and goal that they set early on.
Some didn't want to do it, just kind of got into it anyway.
It was thrust upon them,
I have an interesting background there. The founder of Cerner I met in college, and he recruited me to come to Kansas City and mentor me in my 20s and 30s, and basically said, well, you have an offer with Anderson Consulting. That's where I started. Once you go there for 5 years and then come back and talk to me.
Okay.
It took me 10 years to come back and talk to him, but I worked in England on a public utility geographic information system project.
That'd be interesting.
Then I came back and was assigned to the Exxon Valdez case.
Oh, wow.
Using the geographic systems to map the oiling in Canada, because there's a lot of lawsuits going on.
Mm-hmm.
I went to work for Mary Kay Cosmetics, which is kind of a hoot from there in their manufacturing space. So we're putting a manufacturing system.
Man, you really hopped
there.
around.
Yeah. Well, this is all
Anderson?
the same company.
Oh.
With Anderson.
Oh,
right?
okay, yeah.
Right.
Well, that
and
makes
then
sense.
I went to work for, at the time it was GTE, it's now Verizon. So in the telecom space.
Yeah.
And so had a lot of this kind of IT experience in dog years, that happened.
Right.
And then I was there 4.5, 5 years. And then there's an opportunity at, a bank for credit card processing. And I jumped right into associate vice president role out of, just being a consultant manager and kind of stayed there. Now I've done all kinds of different things. And, right now I have, a large group, and I may go back to my other group and go from, 120 resources to 0.
Yeah.
Right. Because I want to get deeper, in one space, and then, other opportunities come. You just kind of,
so it was never your goal to build an empire and manage 500
No, I
people.
I do not like big orgs.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, really?
I don't.
You've been a part of them.
I
The
know,
whole career.
but the fun part is, building high performing teams. Sure. And,
Do you think a big organization sort of stifles high performing teams?
No.
Okay.
Definitely not at Oracle.
Okay.
Right. And they're teaching Cerner a lot about how to do that in engineering. And I think it's a better strategy.
Well, like you said, they're basically a tech, an engineering first company. So
they are, crazy.
Imagine maybe the experts.
Crazy things.
That.
I had an open position on one of my teams. I had 600 applicants, like within 2 weeks.
Because it's Oracle.
Yeah. But I mean, internal, external,
Yeah.
But, building those high performing teams, the contrast in culture, Cerner hired everyone out of college, right? We had a dev academy. It was like you go to a draft, right? You provide developers to the dev academy to figure out who's the good ones. Yeah. And then you just go to a draft and you pick up, okay, I've got 5. I'm just coming to my team. That's what you do.
Right.
Oracle's more, you want your workhorses, in the 10 to 15 year range.
So you're going and hiring other companies' best people.
Well, you're doing that, but you're growing quickly, you're managing, and that's what I've done in the past. When I had smaller companies, we couldn't afford it.
Sure.
Right? We couldn't afford to make a hiring mistake, right? So we would have senior folks, come in, and one of the most important aspects, in that, I've got a piece in this article is talking about finding engineers that care, right? I don't know how many engineers that, have interviewed that, I mean, they are phenomenal engineers, right? But they're, a little bit of a loose cannon at times, right? Versus those that I know that if they're at a soccer game and it's on a Saturday and the system's down, they have their laptop, they have their wireless card to get in. I don't have to say anything.
Right.
They just do that sort of stuff, right?
Right.
Now, is that sort of requirements that you place upon them when you hire them, or is that something that...
it's something you kind of
like
intuitively know and you build it.
I didn't know if there were characteristics in their personality that you look for as well.
So I'll give you for instance. So the gift card company that I worked for, we had I joined it, came from Cerner. I had 300 some odd people, matrix in, joined this company. There's only 10, 5 developers, right? They were great. They'd worked together before. You don't have to do designs. They just think alike. They just do it. But we didn't have a lot of money, and we were trying to build this stuff up. And so we figured out from the best way for us to hire, right? We're using recruiting agencies and Indeed and everything else. And so we would write, you have your formal, HR job description, right? Well, we would write a job posting. And what we do is say, we need the Samuel Jackson of coding, right? we started it, right? And then we kind of weave in our requirements and what you have to do. But then, most engineers are introverts. Mm-hmm. You get them in an interview, they just can't think, they can't, do things.
Yeah.
Right. So we said, hey, send us a copy of your best code you've ever written. Tell us about it, And then when
I like that strategy.
If they made the the short list and we'd interview them, they bring that in and they tell us about that, right? Because it's something they know.
They're comfortable.
And they're
right.
comfortable.
Sure.
And we can we reviewed it ahead of time. All that stuff. Well, what it told us. So one of the tenets. And we could look at their code and look at their writing and parlay it back to what we asked them to do. So we knew they could follow instructions. We knew if their punctuation was right, if their detail in their writing was correct. We could see how clean their code was, how they understood it. And that was vital to what we did because you can't teach that, right? We had situations where we had a gift card company. We used a MasterCard private label card, right? So it's really a MasterCard. Mm-hmm. And we had a lot of shopping malls in Canada because everything in Canada is an enclosed shopping mall for obvious reasons, right?
Yeah.
Well, in the lower populated areas of Canada, the MasterCard network runs across the Visa network. It's just the way the systems work. Well, when you do that, it triggers a rate change from Canadian dollars to US dollars. And so we didn't have that rate change right.
Oh, boy.
So we had people calling us saying, I'm using my card. It's got $1 less than what I thought I had on it, or 99 cents or whatever else, right? Yeah. And so, we figured that out, but that was the importance of what we're trying to do. In the States, if you do that incorrectly, you get attorney generals calling you.
Yeah, sure.
So perfection was good. So we didn't have a lot of money. We couldn't have a hiring mistake. So, the lead developer at the time came up with a strategy, right? And it worked. It worked for us.
That's actually smart.
Yeah.
So because that's one of the hardest things, and I agree with you. I think there's been some really talented developers that I've run into in my career that I wouldn't necessarily want working for me,
right?
Just because the attitude, or
somebody
that really cares and somebody that really dedicates themselves to it.
Well, you can tell somebody who wants to join, for the money or something like that, and then they're, a flight risk, if they get something better or whatever it might be. So those are a little hard because you get them embedded, take all this time. You've clearly told us how much time it takes to get developers comfortable within systems in your whole culture. To have them just up and leave is definitely catastrophic.
Yeah,
so.
and for that company, the lead developer, the two guys that ran it, it was kind of their ideas. I supported it. We did goofy things. We did 6 a.m. tailgates.
Oh.
And so, they'd come in, bring a flat top. We do burgers, and all the seniors, the C-levels would come and meet with the team. And we were a small company. It was probably 70 of us, but it was a cultural thing that we did that just brought everybody together. Because you'd basically be done by 8, clean up, and go to work, right?
I wonder if that day's development was down.
That wasn't a deployment day.
That's where that whole Canadian U.S. dollar thing happened. Was after a tailgate. That's hilarious. Have you kind of covered everything you want to cover?
I think so. The only the last thing in here, which is important to large companies or small companies, is really a change management aspect. So, when you're proposing new systems, getting stakeholder buy-in across the board is critical. And one of the things that, we did, because I went after a $10 million investment, for the team. And what we would do is I called a layered communication strategy. So in the same week, we kind of orchestrate this where VP to VP would have a conversation, and then manager to manager, then engineer to our DevOps team, and then product to product, and we'd be selling the same story. So when the topics came up, everybody at every level may not have a deep understanding, but they heard it before. And they kind of got the pitch and got everything. And the narrative that we were trying to do, which really helped us, not only speed up doing, getting done what we needed to do, but, it helped with all the layers of management to, get critical things done that was important for the business and the teams.
Yeah. Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
So how do you know? Okay, so the budget, you said you went after about 10 million or so for the team. Is that sort of a team effort when you go to plan that sort of thing? Do you get buy-in from I guess, how does that process work?
Well, it goes from the business case standpoint. So
and those are trickled down from from the top anyway, right?
Well, I build them.
Oh, okay.
Right. I mean, it goes back to how do you support your team and what you're doing? It's not just all about the tech, it's the business. Right. And our business needed to grow. This area was an area of high growth. We experienced 20% growth year over year, both in transaction volume and revenue. But we had a bunch of 25-year-old systems. And you're in a company with thousands of engineers, and you still got one guy that knows the system over there.
One person.
The one person, right?
He's been there for 25 years.
Right. So when you come in and say, well, here's the story, right? I've got, 4 different transaction sets. I got 3 systems each that does the same transaction. We have maintenance, you have license costs, you have all that. And so you start doing that. And then you parlay that to, well, the system over here is doing $50 million of business. It's been sunset 2 years ago from the company. We can't even apply a Java security patch to,
Right.
And so you tell that story. And it just made sense for us to say, yeah, we are in the product building, software, building, but these systems we have are really commodity in the market. And there's someone out there that has the gold standard. So it's basically, if we get this system, we can cut our development time in half because it's more of a WYSIWYG kind of orchestration type system where you kind of, here's the transaction flow. If you need to code in it, you look at the flow and add your code in the piece, and then code generates what runs in production. So it cuts our time in half from that standpoint. And
so I return on investment.
Yes. Yeah. And so we kind of, went with that strategy, and I parlayed. It's like, I'm not going to need to hire anybody to do this. We're just going to use the resources we have and move it through. And basically, once we invest in, the first year, we're going to have, something implemented. Well, we had it done in 7 months.
Oh, nice.
Right. And so, you've got a dying system over here that, you as a leader are like, oh my gosh, is it going to stay up today? Type of thing. Right. To like, okay, we have
Stability.
Stability.
Yeah.
We have,
Yeah.
something that is tried and true in the industry that we know will scale, and
They're saving money and making,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, so
fantastic.
just-
So your
it
job
makes-
is partially a salesman as well. You got to sell to your leadership.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And an accountant. You
Yeah.
got to calculate
Yeah.
the return on
That's
investment.
right. That's right. So
Everything else. But
anyway, yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah.
Been a good time.
yeah.
No, this was great.